Hello to everybody who's met a lover's parents under less than ideal circumstances. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hi, everybody. It's Chris. And if you're not in the mood for an intro, I'll just encourage you to go to beautifulanonymous.com for bonus content, punchup.live/Chris Gethard for tickets on my touring dates. In the meantime, if you want to skip the intro, get right to the phone call. It's not the longest one. I didn't time it totally accurately, but I bet if you skip like 6 or 7 minutes, you'll be right there. Thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. It's Chris Gethard, and as you can hear in my voice, I am not sleeping a lot. That's because I'm on the road, and when I'm not with Hallie and Cal, I find it very hard to sleep. But I am on the road, and I want to thank everybody. I did this weird little tour where I went to Muncie, Indiana, Hazard, Kentucky, Memphis, Tennessee, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Thanks to everybody who came out. I got to tour with a bunch of other great comedians. The shows were so fun. They took place in cities that sometimes, if we're being honest, get skipped. And I was so happy to go there and throw down, do shows, be with some other comics, and burn out my voice while being unable to sleep at night because I miss my wife and my son. That's why my voice is like this. I do have shows coming up. Pittsburgh, end of the month. Tickets are selling great. Get them now if you want to come. Bottle Rocket Social Hall. It's on a Monday night. I can't believe the ticket sales are as good as they are. Throw down and grab one. That show's going to sell out. Morgantown, West Virginia on Tuesday night, the next night, July 31st. Ticket sales for that one, not bad. Grab a couple tickets. You can lay down across 3 seats because there is a lot of availability. I'll be doing the show. I'm actually going to be in town teaching at a conference for Laughing Together, which is the mental health and comedy crossover nonprofit I helped found. I'm going to be teaching at a conference in Morgantown on the morning of the 31st. Oh, no, Pittsburgh's Tuesday the 30th. Morgantown's Wednesday the 31st. I mixed it up. It's not a Monday and Tuesday. It's a Tuesday and Wednesday. Still 2 nights, traditionally bad for comedy. That being said, that Wednesday night, Morgantown, West Virginia, come on out. I'll be there in the morning teaching, and then we said, let's stick around and doing shows at one of my favorite venues, 123 Pleasant Street. It's going to be incredible. And then, of course, we've got tickets moving in August for Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Wisconsin, Chicago, Ferndale, Michigan, Lakewood, Ohio, just outside of Cleveland. Those are all in August. And then in October, we got Somerville, Mass., Garwood, New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, a Philly date that just went on sale, Hamden, Connecticut. All of those from Kansas City through Hamden, Connecticut are with the great Eddie Pepitone. This tour is going to be awesome. Jersey's about to sell out. My Jersey people, thanks for always having my back. It's all love. Maybe I'll see you on the road. punchup.live/Chris Gethard if you want to come. Just to get the other big plug out of the way, thanks to everybody who has signed up over at beautifulanonymous.com for our bonus content. The bonus content is really a lovely time. We had a big burst of signups earlier in the month, and now it's slowed down. We're at 855. I think that's only 2 in the past week. And you know what? I don't care. For some reason, Beautiful Anonymous is this amazing project where my ego, it's never the ego hits, and also the ego glory that have come with things like working in TV or having a stand-up special. Those are big mercurial ego swings. Beautiful Anonymous is just slow, steady, chill, talk with people. It's rad. What a lucky life, start to finish, for the past 8 years now. And that's why it's legit when I tell you it is a show that has in so many ways rewired my priorities. So thanks to the 855 people getting bonus content by signing up at beautifulanonymous.com. And thanks to the many thousands of people who support this show and remind me that this show is about human connection. And that while it is nice that it can also generate some income, the human connection is what's most important. Now, forever, and always. Speaking of which, I'm not going to tell you guys too much about this upcoming episode. There's a few trigger warnings. I mean, murder, domestic violence, abuse, like for real, this caller has a story. We joke about it. You start to learn the fabric of America, and you start to learn the ways in which Texas does its own thing. And one thing that Texas has for it is that when there are stories of insane situations, that Texas really has the market cornered on those. And I'm not talking about like Florida man, like a cliche of like Texas is crazy. No, I'm talking about, you know, the tradition of writing in Texas Monthly Magazine. I'm talking about the actual level of storytelling merged with a sense of Wild West lawlessness that sometimes happens in that state. This is one of those stories. There are absolutely going to be people saying, why is the caller laughing? And I would say, chill with that. People have a right to react to their own tragedies in their lives how they choose. And sometimes if you don't laugh, you will lose your mind. This caller is someone who went through a lot in life before even getting to the core story at the heart of this episode. This is one of those ones where it's overflowing with possibilities on where to go. But I think you'll see what I'm talking about when I tell you, when we get to that core story, you go, well, we got to spend a lot of time on this. And I would invite you to think about just the number of things that I didn't even have time to ask more follow-ups about. This one's really old school in that it put my jaw on the floor. I think it might do the same for you. Dare I say we have an all-time classic on our hands.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm tired. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee in a hotel room. I'm in the middle of a tour. And it's fun. It's a lot of driving. But it also felt like, well, I'm in this quiet hotel room with nothing to do. Maybe we'll have a late night Beautiful Anonymous taping.
This is wild.
Yeah. I'm not sure what time zone you're in. It's 9:45 p.m. where I am. And I'm not even on the East Coast. I'm in Central Time. So.
Okay. Do I tell you where I am?
That's totally up to you.
Well, I feel like I'm in a big place. I mean, I'm in Texas, so I'm 9:45 too.
I love Texas. Texas is fascinating.
Me too. I know. I feel like it's in the same way you talk about New Jersey as people, the way we talk about Texas, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, I was on deadline. I'm on a deadline, and I was scrolling on Twitter, and I just happened to see that you posted. It's so surreal.
Well, I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah. I don't really know how this works, Chris.
We just talk. We just talk.
Well, feels like this happened in my head before, but yeah, I had such a. Do I just talk? Do I just tell you something?
Yeah, whatever you want it to be. It could be this for an hour. It could be us awkwardly saying that we don't know how it works. It could be that for an hour. We can talk about anything or nothing or whatever you want.
Thrilling. Yeah, I just kind of blurted out beforehand, but yeah, I have this nervous. I'm always kind of fiddling with my rings. I kind of always have to have kind of like a self-soothing mechanism, and I have this one ring from my dead grandma. I've lost her in a really traumatic way pretty recently, and I've not taken this off my finger, and it never fully slips off. I'm always twiddling with it, and it fully slipped off somehow today. And I noticed it on my drive to work. And when I came home, I don't know why I thought to check the curb. I just noticed my ring, and I fully smooshed I had run over. I guess it had slipped out of my pocket. It slipped off my finger, and it had laid on the street all day while I was at work. And
wait,
I just
you
perfectly ran over it. Yeah.
Is it okay?
Pancaked. No, it's not. It's cracked. It's just this black onyx ring. It's like my one like memento of her. I feel very connected to her, and it just, I don't know. It just, feels like a really, it's not okay. I just can't keep nice things. So it's hard to keep memories and physical reminders of people and things around me without ruining them somehow. I don't know, like, if you do travel with anything, so you're always on tour, like, do you keep things on you? Like, do you wear rings?
I wear a wedding
keep any
ring.
kind of talisman?
I wear a wedding ring. I wouldn't say I have any talismans. No talismans, but I do wear a wedding ring. And
like, you never like
never like what?
Do you like play with it? It never slips off? I mean, I'm almost like terrified to get a wedding ring. Thought of something that has that much meaning.
No, a wedding ring isn't going to slip off.
Put.
My fingers have only gotten chubbier since I got married 10 years ago. My wedding ring's not going to just randomly slip off. But I'll tell you what I do have that's kind of cute is I have in my wallet, I tend to keep some notes that Hallie wrote me when we started dating. But then at some point I realized they had disintegrated into complete dust. But then there was something that I thought was pretty lovely about that. And now in my toiletry bag, I have a little note that Cal tried to like draw a little picture for me probably about a year and a half ago. He was 3 years old. And I keep that little note. So every time I hang out my toiletry bag, I see this little scribbled thing.
Oh, I love that. I travel a lot for work and it's hard. I feel like I'm scared to kind of put too much meaning in things. I'm almost like giving things away, or I don't know if I'm intentionally losing things or just like perfectly pancaking things in a way that, I don't know, keeps things at a distance for me. But I like that you didn't fall apart when your love letters all disintegrated. I like that feels like I get very scared of like losing things, but I don't really have much. So it shouldn't matter as much. I like don't want to like spiral about a stupid ring, but
no, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. I get it. Especially when it's one thing if it's if you're like, oh man, something awful happened to this belonging that has deep sentimental meaning to me. And unfortunately, there was a hurricane and it was lost, or a fire and it was lost. It's also different when it's like, well, I accidentally ran it over with a fucking car. Like that's I get why that's more of a bummer.
Yeah. I feel like the way I lost her was so intense that I feel like I should have, my whole, I don't know, standard for living should have risen up around it to kind of protect it more. Like it feels very, very like intensely human error fuck up. But like even the way I lost her, maybe that's even more interesting than like a ring getting broken. But I didn't really ever get to fully grieve her because it wasn't maybe it was kind of like an irregular way, just a certain type of trauma that like we didn't really have an open funeral, or a lot of people, they just weren't, their lives weren't, okay, wow, I'm sorry. But still kind of ongoing, maybe like a grieving process for her because I lost her and my grandparents died the same day, but they, it's just so fucked up. But at the end of COVID, and my grandpa was physically, they were living together. He was physically kind of deteriorating, and he kind of was feeling himself going. My grandmother was perfectly fine physically. But got into this, I guess the next thing we knew, like he had a gun and they didn't want to let
What?
anyone in the house.
Wait, your grandfather?
Yeah. So he didn't want to go to the hospital, and kept saying he wanted to take her with him. And, we kind of had that crazy enough grandpa. We're like, well, of course he has a gun. It's fine. He's not going to do anything. He just never thought that I don't know. We just thought he would we might thought he might kill himself, but he ended up shooting her. They kind of got in bed together and he shot her, and then he tried to shoot himself, but the gun jammed and they had to send in like a SWAT drone because they thought someone was hostage. So he was kind of pleading with this SWAT drone to kill him and tried to suicide by cop. And he died later that day in the hospital after he was charged with murder. And this is all like the very end of COVID. So it was all like this really intense day. We live on a tiny island in a tiny lake in the middle of Texas, and everybody knows everybody.
What are you even talking about? What? You live on a tiny island, and you're overflowing with laughter as you talk about it. It was only a couple of years ago,
I know.
and it's one of these things where people are going to listen and go, "How could you be laughing about it?" But I also understand the impulse of like, "Well, what the hell else am I supposed to do?"
What am I? Oh my gosh! To imagine that, the laughs that we've had, it's scary. Sure, yeah, maybe this is why we haven't necessarily had a funeral. I was a year out of rehab too. I was a year sober. I was a little fresh, new sober baby. So maybe that was the first time I kind of heard such laughter through trauma, was in rehab, which was, great practice for stuff like this to come. Yeah, dude, it was fucking nuts. This tiny town where everybody knew everyone, you think that there was this kind of vacuum sucked up right after, it was just like faux pas that like a small town Texan community didn't really want to talk about it. And there was just fucked up shit of like, why did it get to this degree and how did it come to this? So it's kind of like, the whole surroundings of it feel like this dark, little shameful, not little, like kind of like a major trauma that like has had severe ripple effects to our family. And it feels so fucking funny that I pancaked her ring today. It's just...
Well, this certainly explains why it had such a head-spinning emotional impact on you to run over your grandmother's ring.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, and I'm looking right now. She looks to me just like a young Elizabeth Taylor, and I just picked up this really cheapo, but glamour shot of Elizabeth Taylor in a frame that I got at an estate sale. So I'm like, I just made eye contact with it. I kind of forgot I had put it up in my room.
Wait, hold on. How comfortable are you with me asking questions about this situation?
Ask me anything.
What was the nature of the relationship with your grandfather before? Like you said, he's a crazy grandpa and nobody was shocked he had a gun. But
right, yeah.
I got to know a little bit more of the backstory on this. Was this a complete shock or was he unhinged?
Totally. Yeah. Oh, so he's, so I grew up, my nature that my relationship with him, I guess I have like a very close relationship with my grandparents. My dad, my dad left the family when when I was just a baby. So me and my two siblings, my mom, we moved in right across the street from my grandparents in my old great-grandparents' house. So they were like my second pair of parents. I was so close to them. And he was this wild, wild man, like race car driver, half deaf from tinnitus from being in the Air Force, scarred up from firework accidents, like just this, like kind of like no bullshit East Texas, you know, like kind of a psycho, like really like showed up for us as like, you know, a father figure, but then we kind of found out maybe not a great father, like didn't realize he was our step grandpa, like he had adopted my mom at a young age, and he there's even deeper, there's such deep stuff. There's like, yeah, he there was some like some sexual assault from and some grooming between that he did to his daughters, and I mean to my mom, to his daughter, and this kind of complicated relationship of like him not being completely well. They were taking ivermectin, taking little dabs of ivermectin, little green paste, like just like self-medicating themselves through COVID. He usually had a Saturday night special, I think is what the gun's called, like this tiny little gun, like in the sofa cushions. They each had a gun by their bedside table. He was constantly shooting animals all throughout the lake. And they always, I mean, yeah, we kind of laugh about it now. Maybe we just generationally are like a darkly humored family, but they would always say when we ran out of money, we're going to walk into oncoming traffic. And we would all like, oh hush, started to say like, oh, you know, his health was deteriorating. And he was like, well, we'll just do the back porch idea. Come to find out, the back porch idea is a murder-suicide plan that they've just kind of been silently brewing. So that's why it was like, oh, of course he has a gun, but there's no way he would. I guess like we really weren't expecting the murder-suicide part, but that's a little bit of backstory for him.
This is, and I'm not saying this out of judgment, but this is one of the craziest stories we've had on this show in 8 years.
I didn't want to hear that. There's no way.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to have to tell you, but this is wild.
There's
shit.
No way that my grandpa trying to get the robo SWAT drone to shoot him because he didn't fully understand what the robot was capable of. No.
No, wait. How do you know about
my
that part?
My murdered grandma.
How do you know about that part?
Maybe because they told us too much. There was things that, looking back, I was like, maybe you shouldn't have told me this the day of.
So a robot flew onto the scene to observe, and he started tormenting it, thinking it was some sort of Terminator future where the robot could kill him?
Yes.
Did the robot have any guns on it, or was this just a misconception?
In my head, I was like, did it have a little arm? Did it have a drop down that was giving him the impression it was loaded? They weren't gonna. I mean, yeah. And the thing was, he was fully in his mental faculties. They were saying he was like very conscious. So yeah, one of the darkest dudes I've ever known. And I still can. Yeah, I'm still distanced from it. I have to be.
Yeah, clearly.
Mm-hmm. And people, it's so strange when people do hear, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, listen, what a great, I don't know. I've heard the most insane range of responses to it. Not that I tell anyone this. It really bums people out. It really confuses people.
Now, you said it's a small town where everybody kind of knows everybody. So this is a place where I'm sure in the immediate aftermath, you probably got neighbors dropping by to make sure you and your family are okay. You got people maybe being nosy and other people trying to help protect your privacy. But then as it goes past and it's weeks and months, is this a situation where, like, when you run down to the pharmacy to buy some toilet paper, somebody sees you and is like, oh, hey, so what happened with that?
Yeah, that's, it's even darker, but like the next time we saw them was like maybe some of the other small town people was at like another funeral. My mom and my aunt still live in the small town, so like they see more of like, it's a lot of averted eyes though. It's a lot of not asking questions because it's, in my head, it's like, such a deeply fucked up, private, matter that like, it's hard for people to know what to say. So they really prefer not to say anything at all. Because it's hard to say like they're in a better place. It's hard to say. I mean, the way when I think of it, like people have come up to my parents and said, what a blessing, because they went at the same time and they went the way they wanted to go. And in my head, I just really cannot see my grandma in a frantic. My grandpa was going to die. Like they were saying, it was like stage 4. I think that was like his listed death, actually. It was like whatever cancer he was dying from.
He
and he
died
knew he was going
of
like
the
that
cancer
day.
that day?
Yes.
It was of the cancer. It wasn't, I assumed that maybe the police got rough with him and he had some injuries. He died of.
Oh no. He was a frail dying body. So there was nothing like he could have even like threat. Oh, but he tried so hard to like reset this gun that like had this really major malfunction, but he had gone in with like a knife and was really like tinkering with it to try to get it back and just like begging to be killed. But his organs failed that night. So like he died that night of quote natural causes, but like he kind of knew it was his. That's fine if he would have killed himself in my head. Like perfect. Great. That's also dark, but honestly, pretty complicated view of him by the time.
Sounds like sounds like a well-deserved.
Yeah, I didn't.
Statement.
Yeah. And I hadn't gone and seen him since like I got out of rehab. These were like kind of my second pair of parents, so it did feel like scary, disconnected. But then when I heard, I was like, okay, if he kills himself, this is fine. And then when he killed my grandma, I can imagine her last moments were pure panic. She was perfectly physically healthy, but they think her memory was starting a little bit, like kind of some early beginnings of dementia. But the panic she must have felt in those last moments, no one can tell me that's like how she should have died.
That's
like
awful.
I can't. Yeah. So it's just like you kind of hear about those stories and like you see it in books and like movies and like they crawl into bed together, but that's a violent fucking death.
Yeah,
not like
it's horrible.
a sweet lover's embrace. Yeah.
The robot drone specific in particular is just so intense.
So such a modern way to go,
Screaming at a
he was
drone?
Screaming at like an old East Texan Olympic level racist. Just couldn't like made it so far in the world that he he begs a robot helicopter to kill him. Like pretty crazy world.
Absolutely.
Like, I bet he, could his tiny, like, I just imagine him growing up like tiny little 10-year-old in East Texas. Like, do you think he would have What if someone whispered in his ear, "This is how you're going to go. This is what that last day looks like, dude."
Man.
It's so surreal.
We're going to pause there. It's very surreal. It only gets more surreal. Wait. I mean, everybody just hold on tight for this one. We'll be right back. Have to tell you something about me. I am not a great sleeper. Comes up on the show all the time. You all have heard it a lot of times. People ask me how I'm doing. I go, I didn't sleep great last night. Well, I'll tell you, part of that is that you got to come correct with the sleep experience. And Bowl and Branch is here to help. I am somebody who I tell you, the second it starts getting warm, I'm a hot sleeper. I toss, I turn. I find it very hard to get comfortable. You sit here, you got, God forbid the sheet moves 4 inches and then you've got your toes sticking out on one leg and then the other isn't. And that disparity between the warmth, all of a sudden you can't deal with it. That's me. I'm one of those people. But guess what? With Bowl and Branch, you're never going to sleep hot again. Their sheets are woven to allow airflow. It's going to help you feel cool. These sheets, they're crisp to the touch. They're perfect for sleepers who run hot. Bowl and Branch has amazing options for hot sleepers. You can choose from a 100% organic cotton percale that's made with a naturally cooling weave, or their linen, which is made from European flax. It's light, airy, and softer than soft. I have to tell you, there's just a clear-cut difference. When I sleep on my Bowl and Branch sheets, I know it. You can feel that others do not have as much thought, as much care, as much strategy put in them. They are soft. When you wash them, by the way, sometimes you wash sheets, right? We all know you buy sheets, you use them, you're like, oh, these seem great. You wash them, all of a sudden they feel real starchy, real stiff. Nope. Bowl and Branch only get softer. They only get more broken in each time. And they will help you sleep better, especially if you're like me. And during hot summers, sleep just becomes relentlessly unpredictable. Go ahead. Get some Bowl and Branch, and you will feel a lot better with them than with your old sheets. Simple as that. Bowl and Branch's signature sheets are loved by millions of sleepers. There's over 11,000 5-star reviews out there. They also have a 30-night worry-free guarantee. You can wash, sleep in the sheets. You can use them for an entire month. And if you don't love them for any reason, you can send them right back with free returns on all U.S. orders. That's wild, an entire month. That speaks to their confidence. It's also not just sheets. I'm talking a lot about the sheets, but there's blankets, there's cloud-like duvets, there's pillows, there's so much going on. Get your coolest, most comfortable sleep during Bowl and Branch's annual summer event. We're talking 20% off site-wide, plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bowlandbranch.com/beautiful. That's Bowl and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/beautiful. You get 20% off, free shipping, limited time only, exclusions apply. See site for details. Come on, you always need a new set of sheets. Treat yourself right. Get 20% off, bowlandbranch.com/beautiful. Use it today. Thanks to all of our advertisers. Now let's get back to the phone call.
What if someone whispered in his ear, "This is how you're going to go. This is what that last day looks like, dude."
Man.
It's so surreal.
Can I ask you, you've mentioned a few times that you had just gotten out of rehab. Can I ask what addictions you were dealing with?
Yeah. My drugs of choice were alcohol, and I had a sister addiction to Adderall. And so those got me into, I had lived in New Orleans, for a few years, and I was in New Orleans and came back that last stretch of COVID in 2020 and, went to a rehab in Texas Hill Country and saved my life, thankfully. But another surreal experience is to be in a treatment center in the middle of COVID with COVID outbreaks happening and the rehab and having to do all your therapy with masks on and just a trip. I had never was my first time ever getting sober. So I know a lot of people have had experience with it, but I didn't think I would have to face like that kind of reality either. I thought that was like, wow, this is the hardest thing I'll ever do. Get sober.
I was just going to say too, you know, I've never been to rehab, but I did quit drinking. And my understanding is that especially coming out of a rehab facility, you want to go back to like a safety net, to stability, to a family that's going to be understanding and have your back and help carve out breathing room as you readjust to being back in the day-to-day world. And what you don't need, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, what you don't need is your grandpa killing your grandma and then trying to fight a robot. You don't need that at that time in your life. And I'm really sorry it happened to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, who knew they sent in robots in such willy-nilly fashion too, you know?
Yeah, they got to update us. Listen, one thing I'm taking away from this is...
these are overfinanced police.
They got to update us on this robot policy. Whatever the robot policy is, one of my takeaways here, if we're going to look for the silver lining or the facetious side of it, is why are we spending so much money on flying robots, and what exactly are the policies with these flying robots? Because this is... I just have to say, I know we keep returning to it. Like you've returned to it, and now I'm returning to it. But just the actual image of that in my mind, and I can't imagine being someone actually connected to this. It's your grandparents when they're sitting here and going, so, you know, when we realized the gun was present, but maybe we didn't know if it was disabled or not, we did send in a flying drone. And at that point, we regret to inform you that your grandfather did start trying to fight the flying drone. And just the image of that is so wild. That's so wild.
I know. You know? The SWAT team stayed safe that day. They weren't pulling any punches. They knew this guy was 85. They were like, no. Send in the bot. I do imagine it with his like little knives in my hand. You know, I see it with little knives, little spinnies, because it's just like till the end, it's a little much. There was like some crime scene tape on. There was crime scene tape. There was like a news organization there. It was just like. It's very surreal. I mean, rehab's surreal, and like, you know, it's just COVID was surreal, and all these things that felt like, and there were so many times I think, like, so thankful for being sober during those times, because it was like watching other people get fucked up, because like the generational trauma did not stop the day of the robot.
I would say that some might say it was just beginning.
Yeah. Yes. New chapter of it started for sure that day. And so it was just like seeing the magic of it all, though, still the idea that this is like real life. This is so much more powerful than any drug. Like being able to kind of, I don't know, just experiencing this feels like a drug. Just remembering it feels like a drug.
How are you holding up? How are you holding up in general? How are you holding up with your sobriety? Because like I said, we can laugh about it, but it is true. I can't, just be selfish for a second and tell me how you're doing, because it's the last thing you need to deal with. I can't imagine a worse thing to deal with on the heels of exiting a rehab center, let alone in the middle of COVID. So I just do want to ask how you're doing.
That is like, so, I mean, that's like the sweetest thing. I mean, that's already more like self-congratulatory, like just you saying that than I can. Cause it just felt like, doesn't feel, you just like, it is that one day at a time. And it feels like you're just kind of strapped in for whatever. And it doesn't really hit you until after the fact, maybe like, how it's settling in, the trauma is settling into your your mind and your body. But like, I'm 3.5 years sober now. It's still a big part of my life. Like, and two of my best friends got sober. So it's like we all made it. And I've seen a lot of people that I love not make it. And I just had a cousin who was on that side of the family, just lost him to what we think is a drug overdose.
I'm so sorry.
Last month. So the hits are still coming. I feel, mean, it feels good to laugh about it because it means like I'm alive, but it also is like, I haven't fully articulated, like, because I don't know if I have the words or like I feel like my sobriety is like kind of keeping certain emotions compartmentalized as I'm ready for them. Like the idea that I smushed my grandma's ring and I'm talking to you right now and talking about all of this. And I thought I would honestly kind of go into the meditation about how I'm just can't keep anything in my life or, you know, I don't know. I didn't think I would talk to you about this, but that's magic to me that this is all interconnected. You know, I adore you. You represent such like a, you know, connection with the bigger part of the world. You're always connecting with other people. I always said in rehab that my higher power was other people, you know, otherwise it's just a voice in my head. I don't really believe in a traditional God, but, you know, it's so crazy. That's like a direct higher power connection to me. So I just feel lit up. Like trauma is just as illuminating in my sobriety as joy, because it's all feelings I used to run away from. So whether they were good or bad, they were always like too big. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when big stuff happens, it's just like, I think the struggle now is to find the right people to be able to express that with without scaring them off or worrying them or, you know, just making people uncomfortable. I'm still fighting a lot of people pleasing, you know, patterns from my addiction and just living. But, yeah, it's like more will be revealed. A lot of people always say that in recovery. And I really like that because it feels very magical and mystical. And even when stuff like this happens, it makes me think that this, you know, life is bigger and more mysterious and more insane than I'll ever be able to imagine. So it's like just observing it feels just incredible.
I find myself thinking about, you know, how you've said a few times that you have trouble holding on to things and that items from your past, mm-hmm. you know, this very meaningful one was destroyed, and you say that it's this pattern. And I sit here and I go, it's making more sense to me the more we talk, both in the sense of obviously you lost your grandmother in tragic fashion and that ring was meaningful. I'm sure that would have been a meaningful remembrance of her, even if that hadn't been the case. So when it is the case, it makes complete sense that it has impact to damage that thing and potentially lose it. But I also sit here and I go, based on everything you're telling me with your family life, you know, what you went through heading into rehab a few years ago, I sit here and go, also those mementos, those markers of our past, those things that we hang on to that, you know, get packed into a box and we move them from apartment to apartment and house to house and they get set back up on shelves. And sometimes you sit here and go, why don't I throw this thing away? It's just something I've had for years. They also, on some level, represent stability. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that's something that you have probably never had. And I can imagine that how frustrating and maybe anxiety inducing that is to go, why the hell isn't anything ever simple and locked down and stable in my life? It's based on what you've told me about people around you. it sounds like stability has been in short supply.
Right. The little cubbying up of boxes to carry, like kind of ferry my way through different homes and spaces in my life is very true. Just clinging to these little turtle shell homes that I have to string together. And so I'm all for everything being transient. I'm all for being temporary, but then it's just, yeah. We had a lot of floods growing up. We had huge floods living on the lake, and like it was almost conditioned. We had this like historic 1998 flood, and it was like above our house, and we were all gone. And my mom got married. Oh my gosh, this family's just nuts. Okay, and we definitely talk about generational curses now, but as more bad things keep happening. But it's like I haven't fully let go of like that maybe inner child need of like, things staying as they are. I'm holding this smush ring right now. So, things, I should be used to this by now. That's the thing.
Well, it is, on one level, I sit here and I go, it's easy to look at these patterns and go, this ring represents another step in this big pattern, why is it always like this? I understand that impulse. There's reality to that. It's also easy to attach all sorts of meaning to objects and their sentimentality, and then to see them get destroyed feels like on some level it screws with that. It screws with the memories you attach to it, and without the item itself, am I going to have less connection to my feelings about this person who gave me this thing, which is way more tragic because she's gone in such an incredibly specific and jarring and horrific way. But then there's also an argument to be made that on some level, maybe the objects themselves, that there's a little bit of a Dumbo's feather situation, a little bit of, while I understand the anxiety of the thing itself going away, just the fact that it's flat and smushed now and you ran it over with a car is a bummer, but it doesn't change the fact that you still have it. And even if you can't wear it because it was destroyed, that it was still given to you, and that your memories of that person aren't going anywhere just because the ring took a hit. And way easier to just say, for me, sitting here in a hotel room, just meeting you, because I am somebody who attaches a lot of sentimentality to objects as well. Point being, I certainly, while I can't empathize, I would imagine there's not too many people who can say, well, I know what that feeling is like to go through that. I think there's a lot of people who can certainly sympathize with how mixed up and hard to sort out some of these feelings about these situations, but then also that ring you're holding. That's hard to sort out.
Hard to sort out. I like that. And that's okay. And I like the idea that it brought, it's hard for me to even go full, like, woo-woo, even though I feel like my life is kind of pointing me to lean in. But it's like, having this conversation tonight is so meaningful, I think, just like step by step as I kind of process this for myself and my family. And it is, things are transformative. And I'm also, I can see this so quickly in a more positive, I'm so over being I get really sick of being self-pitying, so I can kind of switch into being manic. But I really do, I'm always at estate sales. I love the idea of, like, I'm always reselling my own stuff. I restore and resell estate sale finds with my 75-year-old landlady, who's my best friend. She came into my life like 6 months before I lost my grandma. And I think she was sent to me. Like, she's everything to me. So it's like we're constantly, in my daily life, I'm seeing how things are transient. It's like, and it feels good to like let go of things, truly. And it feels good to hold on to things that are broken. Oh, I mean, this feels like another good, realization I didn't know I was going to have tonight.
Yeah. Can I ask, what's your, and you haven't brought this up, but you said you live in a small place, everybody knows everybody. Have you ever thought about getting some distance from that place? And if that would be...
Well, I do.
Yeah, talk to me about it.
I do live in a city. I live an hour and a half away.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just...
Yeah. So...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just what came up today. But when we had another funeral, so it feels good to have distance, and it felt, sometimes I don't think it's enough, because it felt amazing to be in New Orleans, which isn't even that, just 8 hours away, but I felt a lightness, when I was there, which I can still get kind of bogged down by different family members and like expectations and stuff that other people are going through. So, yeah, that's something else that as I gain more sobriety and stability too, certainly it's like very open to gaining more distance, but balancing that with stability for right now. But yeah, I live in a little back house, little tree house apartment of this really, well, she's not nice. We're like, oh, who's that nice old lady you live with? I'm like, she's not nice. She's not nice. She's my best friend though. But yeah, I live in a little small like area within a big city, so feel kind of tucked in right now.
Yeah. What's your safety net like, as far as do you have a partner? Do you have a friend group? Who are the people around you on the day to day?
Well, I am always seeing. Oh, sorry, it's not anonymous. I always see my landlady. My partner lives in New York, so we're back and forth seeing each other, and trying to figure out what we're going to do next. And got some good friends in town. I'm kind of, I would say I'm kind of I'm a freelance writer too. And I feel like I've always just kind of been an observer, like kind of I don't like have a big group of friends. I just kind of have a lot of vastly different people in my life that I live around or work with. But yeah, I really like my partner. I like my alone time. And it's hard to I've kind of reintroduced people slower back into my life since I got sober too. Just kind of learning how to be with people again.
Yeah, I get that, especially if some of the old relationships, if partying was a part of them, redefining that and figuring out how to intersect with those people now. I know how hard that one can be.
Yeah, and feeling good enough around people. Like, I feel like, I lost so much time in my addiction that it's like I'm reentering the world and society when people have kind of sped through marriages and kids and career advancements. And it's like, you know, I'm still a very rogue freelance writer. I feel very, you know, it's just an odd time in the world and my life, but to be on a different track than the majority of the world is always, you know, strange.
Yeah, I'd say so. How long have you been with your partner?
We've been together for 2 years.
So I'm trying to do the math on that. And again, if I'm ever prying too much, and I don't want this to come off as facetious, but I'm just wondering, there's a part of me that's like, if you were together when everything happened with your grandparents, like, what a day to be in a long-distance relationship.
Oh, well, this is funny. Another funny.
Oh, really? Because this one's been a barrel of laughs so far.
God, maybe I should just focus on like the fucked up laughs, like the fucked up shit that my family did right during and after. But my ex, I stayed with the guy when I first got sober. I stayed with the guy who kind of matched I've never been with another alcoholic until I was with him. So we were both living in this little shotgun house in New Orleans during COVID, just like drinking ourselves to like near death. And so I went to rehab. He got sober on his own, and we just kind of fell back into each other. So he flew in to Texas. So we were still long distance. Like I'm barely out of rehab, and he flies in, and I pick him up at the airport, and my mom's on the phone, and I have her on speaker, and he's kind of confused. I was like, oh, well, we might drive down to the lake tonight. I'm just coordinating with my mom as she starts telling the details of how he has the gun. So that was like the beginning. And I'm laughing. And this poor guy was just like along for the ride. And then he was sitting there as I was on speakerphone as they relayed to me, they're both dead. The robot's in there. They can't get him out. We don't know because they also were told that he died, first of all. So this is like my boyfriend has like, I just picked him up from the airport, and I get in the car, I'm driving 90 down, I'm like chain smoking cigarettes, and he's like just staring at me. And we go past the crime scene, and right before we pull up, he was like, I'm kind of nervous about meeting your family. And I was like, well, no shit. You should be. This is like, yes.
Wait.
Well,
that was how he met
he had never met them.
He'd never met them? Can you imagine? Let's just pause right there. Can you imagine meeting the family of someone you're dating under worse circumstances than this? I honestly cannot imagine. I hate to laugh, but what else can you do sometimes? We'll be right back. Recently, you have heard me speaking about Delete Me, one of our new sponsors, and raving about their service. That will continue today because I got my monthly report from Delete Me. That's right. It's not just a one-time service. They go back, they check. I will explain more about the service, but for anybody who has heard me say this before, I've always said I have used similar services, and Delete Me found dozens of places where my info still existed online. They went back. They found 2 where it had been added back. They got it out of there again. Delete Me is bringing the heat, and they're throwing fastballs down the strike zone, man. Now, what is Delete Me? It's a site that's going to help you keep your personal info off the internet. This is important for so many reasons, whether it's, you have to watch out for things like stalkers. You have to watch out for harassment, but also simple things like identity theft, getting scammed, getting way too many spam calls and robocalls. When those things flare up, when you start feeling like I'm getting weird texts that are phishing for my info, clearly. I'm getting way more robocalls than usual. This might mean that you've been added to a site used by these data brokers who have really bad intentions, and you've been made an easy target. You can protect yourself and get peace of mind with Delete Me. Your personal data is out there. It's shocking how much of it is on the internet. And I'm not just talking like your name. there are sites out there that sell your contact info. They'll try to sell your social security number, your home address, the addresses of people connected to you. You'll go and find your siblings, your parents. Their info is out there, and it's being sold by these data broker sites. It's real insidious stuff. And as soon as you run into it, you realize how deep it goes. People out there can get your private details. It's not okay. It's like giving strangers the key to your front door. Don't do it. Keep that door locked. Delete Me helps you do it. You don't want to wake up one day and realize that somebody got into your bank account or started applying and opening credit lines in your name. This is the stuff that's happening out there with scammers on the internet. I exist publicly. I had a situation a few years ago where there was somebody, and I'm not going to get too specific, there was somebody who was threatening me online. I started to get to a point where I said, this is beyond the pale, even for the things you encounter on the internet. And I made sure that my data was scrubbed. It wasn't. It was everywhere. When I started looking into some of these sites, I was going, oh my goodness, my info, my parents' info, my brother's info, anybody connected to me, I now have to worry about. And it is at a time of life where I don't want this info out there because I was feeling genuinely scared. I signed up for some sites, or some services rather, that were supposed to clean my info off of all these sites. I later used Delete Me. They found over 20, if I remember right, it was either 24 or 27 places that had been missed by similar sites. And as I told you, they also just went back and found that 2 places had tried to add my info back in, and they got it out of there again. Delete Me is setting the bar. I have seen it myself. They get all your info out there. They remove it. They figure out where it's floating around. They make sure you don't have to worry about it. You can sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted. Their experts take it from there. As I've mentioned, they send you regular reports, these privacy reports. They show what info they're finding, where they found it, making sure you know that they've removed it. It's not just a one-time service. They are working for you. They monitor and remove the personal information you don't want on the internet constantly. They do a lot of hard work for you, and it helps you protect yourself and your family. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. You can get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Use the promo code beautiful at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful and enter code beautiful at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/beautiful. The code is beautiful.
Who's ready to level up their mental fitness and win the seconds of the day? Well, at least that's my goal. Join me, Mark Champagne, on Behind a Human, a podcast where I dive into the stories and practices of extraordinary individuals. From billionaires to Olympians and cultural icons like Tony Hawk, each episode unveils the pathways and the mental fitness strategies that propel them to the top. Now available on all major podcast platforms. Here's Thriving Minds.
Thanks again to all of our advertisers. Now let's finish off the phone call. That was how he met.
Oh, he had never met them.
He'd never met them?
So what? So what? I was like, strap in. Let's do this. Like,
Like the way your then boyfriend, the way your then partner.
They certainly knew of him. They knew him as like the deadbeat drunk who let get to this like, near death alcoholism. So he goes, well, is there any tips? And I said, the one thing I can tell you is if you just do something to hurt yourself, or if you fuck something up, or you break something, I don't know why, they'll fucking love you. They'll swarm around you. And he was like, I just feel like you're setting me up. But I was like, yeah, sure. That's what I want to do, is like prank you on the way to a homicide. And so he shows up, or we walk past the crime scene, and then I guess like they hugged him, and then he just kind of ambles over to like a patio furniture and like splinters it like kind of like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Like it just fell apart in all these like pieces of wood flew everywhere, and everyone just started like cracking up. They all started hugging him and kissing him, and like it was just this. And like that's when the sheriff walked up to be like, "So the body's gone, like, are y'all good?" So he kind of had to like really, he did really well. He stayed all week. The boyfriend didn't. He also helped me like, forget how fucked up it was. Like I don't know. He didn't. I don't know. So we ended up breaking it. We were together for a while longer, maybe 9 months longer. And like, yeah, I needed more. And wanted to be like really dedicated. And then he started like an affair. So, I met my current boyfriend like on this absolute like whim. He was in town for a rugby tournament, and he's also sober. So, another really strange, weird dude that hears all of this trauma and just is kind of like, I don't think it fully has sunk into him though, because he didn't really experience any of this. Maybe he'll listen to this and hear more, maybe understand it more. But, there's also been a case as to why I keep having these long distance boyfriends, because I'm too scared to like let my full guard and wall, like everything down.
I think that's very understandable. Now, am I
maybe
connecting
I
some
need
dots?
to be protected.
When you're driving up there with your ex, am I connecting some dots correctly in thinking that, he'd never met your family, you'd been into rehab, maybe they feel like he helped facilitate you needing to go there, and that part of this trip was for him to come up there and meet your family, look him in the eye, and maybe pay some penance and sort some things out?
Oh, like that would have been the trip had it not been
like it was that trip going to be like,
suicide.
hey, like you're my boyfriend, but my family blames you for a lot of what's going on, and you need to meet them, and we need to talk it out, and it's going to be an intense trip. Oh wait, you're off the hook.
instant. He got in so easy. He did bypass a lot of like the judgmental older sister being like, dude, she told me about that night. She told me about this night. She told me what you did. Like she, in my drunken stupor, I had let a lot of things slip about what had happened in our last days in New Orleans. And he certainly got a bypass through that, which I was like, how did that motherfucker get? How did that? And he is like, he just, he's one of those, he was a charmer. So
you crashed through one piece of patio furniture to distract my grieving and shell-shocked family on the day of tragedy's unfolding.
That's all it took.
And all of a sudden you get a free pass?
Yeah. Can you believe? Yeah. He did some fuck. And then and even then, he cheated on me. He really ended it fucked up. I really don't have any bad feelings towards him now, but the way he ended it, he was self-described, really fucked up. Didn't have to do it that way. You think that after the trauma, you think that there would have to be a clause, even if you fell in love with someone else. I'm sure, So you have to end it like a gentleman if your grandparents murder suicide and you were there. You just kind of, I would. So even after they knew he was like a dog to me at the end, he cheated on me. My mom, sister, aunt, they will all talk about him in the sweetest, most angelic tones. Oh, but you remember that day? He was so good. He was so appropriate. I go, his fat ass exploded a chair. My God. Like, he was just a mess. Oh, he was there for you. He was there. And I was like, y'all are so fucking. But a cousin brought to the crime scene a girlfriend that everybody hated. So there was 2 newbies walking onto the field that day, and mine somehow like fucking dodged every laser bullet, and then one of the prospects didn't make it through the homicide days, clearly. But yeah, it is funny. It is.
I mean, it is an unbelievable story. I can't believe you lived through it and that you're still living in the aftermath of it. It absolutely is, there's a whole tradition of Southern stories that are ridiculous tales of small towns and tragedies and characters within them. But yours is not fictional. Yours is real life. This is not, Flannery O'Connor did not write this. You lived it.
It does feel distinctly Southern, doesn't it?
It absolutely feel, listen, I'm obsessed with Texas Monthly Magazine. I always have been. And this is out of the pages of Texas Monthly.
Oh my God. Well, maybe I need to, but it's one of those things too. And my mom also always said, you need to write a book, but I don't want you to, because I know it's going to be about me. This is a forever mark on my, family and myself. And it is a really Texas story. So thank God I'm talking to you. I don't know if I will have the courage to do that. Maybe I do need to write it all down.
I would think so. I mean, you're a freelance writer as it is. And one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard happened to you. And it unfolded in real time with a number of details so ludicrous and specific that you could not make them up. You were driving to them so they could meet your boyfriend they were wary of for the first time, and then the phone rings. And
he has a gun. Well, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You've mentioned a few times that this inability to hang on to sentimental items is a pattern. What are some of the other things that come to mind outside of this pancaked ring? What are some of the things that fit this pattern?
God, they're just there's a scary pile of old journals that I've kept since my first reporting trip was to the Amazon when I was 20, and it's what I would take in a fire for sure. And one, I think I might have left one at the ex's house in New Orleans, and in his drunken, addled, who knows where anything is kind of, I don't know if that one is lost to time, or did I just misplace it? Did I even lose it? That kind of drives me nuts. But I have these amazing those are things I've kept, is handwritten journals with all this physical ephemera and Polaroids I've taped to it. And, back when I was a really dedicated journaler. So it's that feels amazing to see and have, but that almost feels like a different version of me. That feels that everything's in my phone now. So it's the physical things I have, I think I'm limiting myself to them. I keep them in storage boxes, almost to protect themselves from me. Because once I kind of keep something on my body or in my eye line, I feel I want to touch it to death. I'm pawing at things. I want to absorb them into me. I keep poetry, excerpts taped on my wall, and I like to I touch them when I read them. So it's maybe I'm just hard on the things I love. So it's maybe that's why I keep things boxed up when I think they get a little too precious. And maybe that's why I keep my boyfriends in different states. Who knows?
You are fascinating. You're a fascinating human being.
my God. Difficult, probably. A lot of Southern euphemisms for that.
All I know
Do you
is,
remember?
what's this? What are you going to say? We got a minute left.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, all I know is that you've been through some things that are so specific and so brutal, and yet you are also already able to speak about them with charm and laughs that are genuinely funny, but that also clear-cut have a lot of the pain of these experiences right inside the laugh, right on the surface. And I truly don't know what to make of it, except to say that you are a quite fascinating person, and I'm so sorry that you've lived through all this, and I'm also very thankful that you've called me and trusted me with all this.
I can't believe it happened. It's all very surreal. Very surreal to be talking to you. It means so much to me. It's in ways that I'm not clear on yet.
Well, it's a joy on my end. Now, it is time for us to say goodbye to everybody who's been listening on the free feed. We have bonus content at beautifulanonymous.com, and if you're down, I'd love to ask you 5 questions from our community-generated list that will send us in 5 random directions, and I have a feeling that you are someone where we might stumble down many further fascinating rabbit holes.
Oh, no.
And if you're down, I'd love to keep going.
Okay, let's do it.
Caller, so sincerely, thank you. That story is not an easy one to endure. That is not an easy one to share. I can't believe you not only shared it with us, but also with such humor and grace. And wow. I don't know what to say about that call except wowzers. In a very old school way, wowzers. Thank you for sharing. I hope that it was a positive to have done so. Thank you to our producer, the high priestess of Beautiful Anonymous, Andrea Quinn. Thank you to Shellshag for our theme music. I'm out on the road. Whole bunch of dates coming up. punchup.live/Chris Gethard. That's where you can find info on all of the dates and the ticket links. Go check them out. Our voicemail line, if you want to leave a story idea, is 973-306-4676. You can follow us on Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod. And of course, we've got the Facebook group over at Beautiful Anonymous, the community. It's a nice, laid-back place to discuss the episodes. Thanks, everybody. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions. If you were offered the choice between all the love you ever wanted or all the money you ever wanted, which would you choose?
Those are both scary. Whoa.
That's a good answer.
Of course I would take, they're both very scary. I don't know if I don't want either of them, but if I had to choose, it would have to be love. That's a tough question. It's like I don't. If I had to choose, yeah.
It's funny.
What would you choose?
Well, I was going to say, you said they're both scary, and then in my mind, I'm going, okay, she's going to pick money because money is less scary than love. But then you went the other way, and I'm sitting here going, what does that say about me?
Yeah. Well, because I guess I'm thinking if I'm surrounded by all that love, somebody's got to have money. Somebody's going to take care of me. I'll be good.
See, if I'm surrounded,
somebody's got money.
If I'm surrounded by money, then someone will pretend to love me. That's my impulse. Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.